chapter 5. We want to start at the first verse. And whenever you have it, can you please stand? John chapter 5, beginning at verse number 1. John chapter 5, beginning at verse number 1. If you got it, say go. Oh, everybody didn't say it. I guess everybody got it. If you got it, say go.
No.
All right. Verse number 1. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. Everybody say 38 years.
38 years.
And when Jesus saw him lying there, and he knew he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered to him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred, but while I'm coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked, and that day was the Sabbath. Amen. I want to talk to you for a short moment on impossible is nothing. Impossible is nothing. Let us pray. Lord our God, Lord, we thank you for this opportunity, Lord, to come into your house, God, and tell you thank you, God. Thank you for being a God that sees past our faults, God. Thank you for being a God that looks at our needs, God, and looks at our wants, God. God, right now, Lord, decrease me and increase your Holy Spirit through me, God. Let this word go forth with great power and understanding. And I'll be so grateful and so honored to give you all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Impossible is nothing. So, this is Black History Month, and all throughout in this particular month, we study and we recognize African Americans that played a vital part in our history, and a lot of people who paved the way for us would do some impossible things. Rosa Parks, who would know that she would ever say no to giving up her seat to a white man while she's on the bus. Martin Luther King, who knows that he would stand up for what's right and fight for inequality for African Americans. And then you talk about Muhammad Ali, to where he was a great boxer and a great activist, and refused to conform to what the government was telling him. And as we honor these African American people, I want to point out to you that Muhammad Ali was one of my favorites, to where he actually paved the way for the impossible being done. And I'll show you. So Muhammad Ali, those who don't know, is a professional boxer and activist who is widely regarded as one of the most significant and celebrated sports figures in African American history. From early in his career, Ali was known for being inspiring, controversial, risk-taking, and being a polarizing figure both in and outside of the ring. Muhammad Ali thrived in getting in your head, and he craved the spotlight, and while being provocative and outlandish with his words. He was known for his trash talking and for his great skills in boxing. He also freestyled his trash talking. He would say things like, "Don't count the days, make the days count." He would say things like, "If you even dream of beating me, you better wake up and apologize." He would say things like, "I'm so fast that last night I turned off the light switch in my room and was in bed before the room got dark." And then his most famous, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble." But Muhammad Ali goes on record to say something much more substantial in my eyes. He goes on to say that impossible is nothing. Everybody say impossible is nothing.
Impossible is nothing.
He says that impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world that they've been given rather than explore the power they have to change their world. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. And even though Ali gives credit to the fact that impossible is nothing, the Bible also gives credit to the fact that impossible is nothing. Right? Any Bible readers in the house? So, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God literally stepping out of nothing and creating something. I've come to let you know that impossible is nothing. David, a young boy, killing a 9-foot giant with a rock and a rag. Impossible is nothing. Y'all get it in a minute. Jesus coming to the earth through a 14-year-old virgin. Impossible is nothing. Joshua fighting on the battlefield and the Lord letting the sun stand still for him to have enough light to finish his battle. Anybody got it yet? Impossible is nothing. But the most significant, Jesus being crucified on the cross. Being buried and beat for you and I, rising with all power in his hands. Y'all supposed to say impossible. Impossible is nothing. I'm going somewhere. And as we look at this text in the words of Muhammad Ali, we see something happening. We see similarities. So chronologically, we're in a time to where we're following Jesus in the book of John. And the book of John is called the book of signs. Everybody say the book of signs.
The book of signs.
Right? So theologians suggest that this book is used to authenticate who Jesus really is. Right? The book of signs. Right? So, and if you have ever doubted Jesus, read the book of John. Read the book of John. It will let you know everything that Jesus has done. Is 7 signs in this book. Right? So, the 7. So there's a miracle of Jesus turning water into wine. Right? That would be impossible to us. The healing of the royal official's son. The feeding of the 5,000. That is impossible. Right? To us. The miracle of Jesus walking on water. The healing of the man born blind and raising Lazarus up from the dead. And now we're talking about the man who was healed at the pool of Bethesda, which to us would seem impossible. Right? And in verse number 2 it says, now is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. I want you to know that this word Bethesda literally means house of mercy. Everybody say house of mercy.
House of mercy.
Everybody say house of mercy.
House of mercy.
In verse number 3 it says, in these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. And whether you guys know it or not, we are the blind, lame, and paralyzed in God's house of mercy. Right? So some of you are blind. Some of you can't see what God is trying to do in your life. You can't see yourself getting out of certain situations. You're blind. But then there's some people who are lame. You have your situation is crippling you and you feel like you can't go on. You are lame. But then there's some people who are paralyzed, and these people get on my nerves. Paralyzed, right? So you're paralyzed means you are stuck in a situation and you can't see yourself out, and basically your people can be paralyzed in more than their body. Right? People can be paralyzed in their spirit, in their body, in their mind. And some people are paralyzed in their mind. Something in their mind just won't let them move forward. They feel like that they're stuck. So you feel like you're paralyzed in your thoughts. You think to yourself, oh, I can't get the job. I don't have that degree. Or I feel like I can't get this job promotion because they want somebody with this certain type of educational background. You are limiting yourself. You are literally paralyzing yourself. Right? So, not only that, but regardless of your condition, whether you are blind, lame, paralyzed, you ought to thank God that you are in the house of mercy. The house of mercy. Because whenever you are in the house of mercy, God can show up and heal you for whatever you have. Touch your neighbor and say, my condition It's a call for the Christ. I never would have been, if I never would have been sick, I wouldn't know that he was a healer. If I never would have been healed, I wouldn't know that he was a deliverer. Touch somebody and say, do you know who he is? I do, because he's my doctor, he's my lawyer, he's my keeper, he's my burden bearer, he's my heavy load sharer, he's my heart fixer, my mind regulator, and I know that God will always be there. Right? So then I'm wondering, looking through this text, at my first point, I won't be before you long, because y'all make me nervous. So point number one, why were there 5 porches? Read the text. Why were there 5 porches? Why weren't there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Every word in the scripture is important, right? So it says there are 5 porches. If you did not know, I want to help you know that the number 5 stands for the need of God's grace. Touch your neighbor and say, I need God's grace.
I need God's grace.
Look at somebody else, say, I need God's grace.
I need God's grace.
So the number itself speaks of the inability of man and our weakness, as when man is weak, when we need God's grace the most. So these people would be sick and come to the pool waiting for the stirring of the water, and these people were literally seeking God's grace.
Yes.
Right? So God's grace is God's undeserved favor. Grace is matchless. God's grace is matchless. It is wonderful. It is marvelous. Grace is mercy, not merit. Grace is getting what you don't deserve, while mercy is keeping from you what you do deserve. Anybody need grace? Because you did some stuff you weren't supposed to do. You had talked about some people you had no business talking about. You had treated people wrong on your job. You had no business treating. And yet God has given you grace to make it into the house of mercy this far. Right? Everybody needs God's grace. That is the only reason why you are alive and able to come into his house and give him praise, because you need God's mercy. I need God's mercy. Because I did some things I wasn't supposed to do. Right? I done talked about people who I wasn't supposed to talk about. But the only reason why, again, that I am here, that you are here, that we are here, is because we need God's grace. Right? So, we don't deserve this grace. We will never deserve it. But I'm so glad that God gave me grace. Anybody glad that God has given you grace? Right? So, understand that we live by grace and we're saved by grace. We live by grace, we are saved by grace. We live by grace, we are saved by grace. Get that in your head. We live by grace and we're saved by grace. We live by grace, we're saved by grace. We live by grace, we're saved by grace. Right? Y'all got to get it. So, in 2 Corinthians 12 and 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This means that you are accepted by God. Everybody say, I'm accepted.
I'm accepted.
Right? So now you are accepted by God, and that means that God has believed or recognized you to be valid to his kingdom, regardless of your weaknesses. Regardless of your weaknesses at all. But then in Ephesians 2 and 8, it says, for by grace you have been saved. And this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. This means you're acquitted. Somebody say, I'm acquitted.
I'm acquitted.
That means that you are set free from whatever you did and whatever you're going to do. By grace. But then I wondered, my second point, I'm almost done. This man had an infirmity of 38 years. Right? And yet we don't know his name in the Bible. We don't know who he is. But we know him by his condition. We don't know. The Bible doesn't say what his name is. The Bible doesn't say that he was a descendant of such and such, such and such. So we can kind of do the work and kind of figure out and point out who he is. The Bible has no recollection of what his name is. We just know him by his condition. And it's a shame, because now we do the same thing with people. Is that we label them based on their condition. If you think about it. If somebody is struggling with homosexuality, what do we call them? Homosexuals. If somebody is struggling with sin, we call them sinners. If somebody is struggling with drugs, we call them what? Drug addicts. We label people by their condition, But instead of labeling by their condition, we should be able to find out why they're in what they're in.
Exactly.
And that's unfair. So we can do it to other people. We don't want that to